Hi, this is Nehal Kazim, and this is the Ad Tips for Ad Pros podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs and marketers how to grow their businesses with direct response advertising. Hi, this is Nehal, and today I'm here with Nazim from Lead Gen Black Belt. And today we're going to be talking about a case study of one of the clients that he took from about 20K a month to over 200K per month in less than 15 months. So, how's it going, Nazim?
I'm good, man. Really stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I
Really glad.
appreciate you jumping on. It's funny how the whole industry works when it comes to Facebook advertising. There's a lot of people who have a scarcity mentality, and Nazim and I were working together on like client transition and stuff, and we started to talk, and we said, "Man, why don't we just go deeper and chat about what other cool stuff that you're working on?" I believe in abundance, and there's a lot of business to go around for all Facebook ads agencies and businesses that are growing. And so that's how Nazim and I got connected. And so here we are. So I'm glad we got a chance to do this, man.
Yeah, awesome, man. When you sent me a friend invite, I went to your page and, I was expecting the usual stuff. And I saw, hey, man, this dude is giving breakdowns of ad scores and the scorecard method you explained on a whiteboard, and some of the things that you explained that we're using. And I thought, yeah, he's going deep with marketing stuff. So it was instant respect. So really glad we connected.
Likewise. And so that's why when you mentioned your case study, I'm like, okay, let's jump in. So if you can give a context of kind of what happened in terms of the after of like the overall result in a nutshell, and then we can go into the initial like stages, because going from 20K a month to 100K a month is a big milestone in itself. But then that's where most people get comfortable or settle or don't want to push further. But you guys were able to go from 100 to over 200K per month, and that there's something to be said about that, not only from a technical and tactical standpoint, but from a strategic and psychological standpoint of like how you guys are approaching the business and then what you're doing. So in a nutshell, what is the business, and how are you able to scale it in a nutshell, and then we can go deeper.
Right. So me and Vanessa Simpkins is the client, and we connected through mutual connections, and I was recommended as a Facebook ads person. And at a time, she was trying to grow her coaching business, and she had a product, a 997 product, and her goal was to really automate her business and make a decent six-figure living out of it. And we built a funnel and we ran it, and the $997 product didn't work that well. Okay, and at the time she was also introduced by someone else to the world of high ticket coaching, and she realized that, hey, I've been coaching people for all of my life. She has thick skin in the game. She's been around, and she basically built a high ticket coaching program for her business. She was charging $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for. So we went ahead and we built a funnel for that. It's a webinar funnel where people basically see an ad on Facebook. They go onto a landing page. There's a webinar sign up page, and then they watch a webinar. They book a consultation call, and then if it's a good fit for my client and the lead, they get to work together. All right, they get enrolled into her high ticket coaching program, which has the elements of video coaching in there, so like a membership site plus weekly calls as well. All right, so we basically took that from a level where she was making 20K, and then we kind of grew it to 200K plus now. And obviously there were specific stages and specific obstacles we had to overcome to really get to that level, and that's what we can discuss.
And what is it that she does for the end client? Like, what's the result?
Yeah, so she basically works with people like therapists, healers, and people like that, and she helps them get their marketing down. Okay, and she teaches what she does, and that is high ticket sales, and she helps them enroll their high ticket um, clients into their programs, because a common problem in the marketplace she's serving is that they're slaving away at an hourly pay model, which sucks. And she basically helps them to really look at their gifts and package their results in a way where they can earn a decent living, earn what they deserve by commanding decent prices, right, and commanding what they deserve
Right.
from their clients. And yeah.
And why do you think they decide to work with her? Because there's a lot of like high ticket, like quotes in air quotes, coaches. And so there's a lot of different things that people want from those coaches. Some of them are focused on sales. Some of them are focusing on marketing or avatar or psychology. Why do you think people choose her?
They choose her because she really has been that person. She has been a massage therapist. She's been there, and she really the program is really designed in a way where in a way where it is very user friendly. We don't pretend to be gurus. We don't throw geeky words around like we're gonna do on this
Right.
call, right? It's very common sense way of teaching marketing, very down to earth in a way where it's um, uh, yeah, it's tailored for people who don't know who don't have a deep knowledge of marketing,
Got it.
and yeah.
Perfect. And so if you could take like a snapshot of where the business was at 20,000 a month, what was going on in the business? Like how was the business running at that point? Without giving away any kind of sensitive details, but essentially of like how the business was growing. Like I'm assuming it was still primarily Facebook ads, like what were the offers, things like that. And then then after that we can go into kind of what changed and what allowed the scale to happen.
Right. So at that stage, we were just getting started building the funnel and launching the ads. And obviously, like launching any funnel, there's a trial and error process to that. So it was a lot of testing the different ad copies, different creatives, and the biggest goal at that stage, and let's call it stage one, is to really get to know the customer and get to know the language the customer is speaking. So yeah, that was the prime. So we're doing a lot of testing, which obviously marketing is testing, and a lot of things didn't work. But what we can discuss on this call, like a few things that we did that allowed us to kind of start speaking that customer's language, start using the images the customer started loving on the ads, and that really is something that got us to like a 60, 70K level, and
Gotcha.
then there was another obstacle, and then we went to 200K.
So at that point, when you're doing 20K, is that primarily based off of organic? Is it just a little bit of ads? How is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at a 20K level, it was primarily organic for her because she was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, but it wasn't quite packaged in a way where we could scale with it, right? So I got on board, and we were trying to promote this $997 offer,
Yeah.
which wasn't quite working, and she was making decent money, like 15, 20 grand a month with her own coaching. I mean, we were selling the 997 product, but not at a level where we could scale it profitably, and it wasn't too much in demand. So the 20K, 15K she was making, let's say 70% of that was pretty much organically generated clients.
That's a great position to be in, and I think this is a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially they're posting in Facebook groups or they're doing presentations or they're just like being themselves and they're just getting their word out. Referrals are coming in, all this organic stuff is happening, but then it gets very tiring. And then something happens in the business where instead of making 5,000 a month or something like that, you start going 20, 30,000 a month, and then the business starts breaking because you have very inconsistent months because it's going up and down. You can't control your leads, you can't control your sales. And so that initial stage, whether the entrepreneur does it themselves, they get their team to do it, they hire an agency, it's a very like confusing time, especially when I don't know anything about any of my advertising. I have no idea what's going to work. I just keep in these Facebook groups. I just see everyone else is doing 100K months. It must be something wrong with me. And so what is it that you guys were doing in the beginning stages with the 999, 997 course? And then how did you make a decision to like stop that or make decisions of like actually going away from that?
Yeah, the problem with these groups is that um, there was a saying someone said that I actually overheard on the Facebook Live, and that was really good. There are always certain outliers for anything, right? And they kind of perpetuate the myth that this thing is working, where in reality it works for 1 out of 100 people, right? The same thing we can notice with ecom. I'm not saying that ecom sales it doesn't work, but we know people, and we know that only a specific amount of people actually succeed with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what can help, yeah, what can work for one person it doesn't really mean that it's going to work for the majority. You have to find whatever fits you.
Yeah, we do primarily information products, education companies, application, webinars, things like that. And one of the clients we're working on is an outlier from our standpoint, not only from our normal clients, but they're an e-com and they have figured out from a cold advertising standpoint on how to be 2x profitable on a physical product on cold on day zero. So that means that when they're spending money on a daily basis, they're actually getting 2x on their money upfront. And then this is a uh, product that you take over and over again. So from an advertising and growth standpoint, usually people are willing to lose 50%. They'll if they're spending $1, they're happy getting 50 cents. These guys are getting 2x, $2, and it's a recurring product. And so it's a great position to be in, but that's not for most people. And there's work that's gotten them there. And so from your standpoint, when you're doing the advertising in the beginning, there's so many things that you don't know what to look at or what to optimize for. How did you know that, okay, now is the time to stop, guys? Like, it's admirable that we're trying and we're investing and testing, but at this point, it's not cute. We're done. So how do you make a decision of saying no?
Yeah, I wish I had a specific number of amount of money you should lose before starting, but I don't because it's very subjective, right? But I think at a 2 month point, I would say that after trying something for 2 months and you're not getting even remotely the kind of results you want to have in business, and
Right.
more importantly, if you don't see how you can improve more the lack of results you're getting, if you don't know how to improve it, if you have no clue, and if you have consulted with people, you have spoken with people, but it's still not working, then probably there's a product to market mismatch. And I'm really glad that you're so honest and you're so open about the fact that what the whole 2 times the ROI and all that stuff, it's those are outliers, and that's amazing that they exist, right? But you have to, I think, realistically, all right, and be realistic and not compare yourself to the people who are doing particularly amazing. Like you have to be willing to be like them, but yeah, you have to be real.
Got it. And the other thing is you have to know who's lying in those groups as well. So you have to know people's intentions because there's a lot of people who are just trying to sell coaching from that. And so anyways, once that happens, where you guys are in a place where it's not working, what happened at that 2 month mark? Because I'm sure you're spending money. There's like frustration. I'm sure emotionally or like, internally, you're trying to figure out like, is it me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Or, from their standpoint,
Okay.
they're trying to figure out like, what do we do next? And so what was the next step after you guys said, okay, we got to change stuff here?
All right, story time. Yeah, let me tell you a little story. So, um, I'm gonna start telling you the story. So when we transitioned from the product to the coaching, it was the client basically starting a program which taught her the high ticket sales. But the thing is, even when we started promoting this product that we're doing now, at the beginning stages, we were, let's say, unsuccessful. And it was all me. I blamed it all on myself. And it was a Sunday morning. I packed my notebook and I went to the co-working space where I would go back in the day. And I was thinking to myself, like, I looked at the ads and the conversion on the landing page, it wasn't bad. It was like 15, 18%. But the CTR was low and the cost per click was high. And I was thinking to myself, what am I doing wrong? Because I wrote the ads and then my client, she looked at them and she was like, yeah, it kind of sounds like me. Obviously, she tailored it to her flair, to her language, but it was still not working. And I was, at the time, I was also reading um, one of Ogilvy's like articles, and it basically said something along the lines of, if you see a marketer who's not studying his audience, run away from that marketer. Like, he
Right.
sucks, right? So I said, all right, cool. I don't want to be a marketer, like, a bad marketer, basically. And what came to my head was that all clients we enrolled into the program would have them run through a questionnaire. So it was about, like I said, the client, she had thick skin in the game, and let's say she worked already with 50, 60 clients at a time. She's been doing it for years now. So I just opened the questionnaire and I spent the not having lunch, no nothing, just a lemonade, and I spent the next 3.5 hours or so really running through them. And as I was running through them, I'm like, God, how come we're not running these things in the ad? And I literally opened up a Word document and I started copy pasting, and I copy pasted like 15 pages worth of literally lines that they put about their problems, about their pains, motivations. And then I started incorporating those in the ads, and this is where it was like boom, like from 1% to 3%, like real quick. That was like the breakthrough.
Yeah, and for people who might not know, like 1% isn't very good on a click-through rate. And obviously, I've seen some of your ads now, and they get 10% click-through rates for one of the accounts that we were looking at, and that's phenomenal for overall engagement, and like 3-4% on the actual click-through. And that is because of some of the nuances that you've got really good at in terms of a photo. Is the photo of the man, if it's a relationship offer, for example, of the man looking at the woman? Is it the woman looking at the man in terms of aspirationally? Is it out of pain? Is it out of disgust? Is it out of allure? Is it out of euphoria? Out of interest, curiosity? Like there's so many different ways that you could take that same image from stock photo sites, or if you're taking it yourself. But how you choose an image is so valuable. And of course, if people are giving you data and specific instructions on how to sell them, that's just priceless.
Yeah, I gotta give credits where it's due. It was also the client where she communicated really well with me by saying, "Hey, Nazim, these are the kind of pictures I noticed that our clients like." Like, okay, I saw that you started promoting, and the thing is, we as marketers, you like me, you, Nihal, and me, we are marketers, and we do our job amazingly, but we still have to, I believe, and I'm sure you'll agree, to keep in close communication with the client and listen to the clients very attentively, because they ultimately have the experience of working with their audience. So if the client says, "Hey, I don't think this image represents my brand or the audience," then obviously you analyze the statement, because sometimes it might be over exaggerated.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of times also it's a very worthy comment, and you take it and improve the ads. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is very important from an entrepreneur standpoint, as I speak to many of them, or even if you're a marketing manager in a bigger organization, if you have a budget, the media buyer's responsibility isn't to fix all problems throughout the whole funnel. And the best relationships we've had with clients, the best relationships we've had internally have always been a tag team, have always been that we feel that we're actually part of a team. And if you're in a situation where the expectation is that the media buyer or someone on the team will just figure it out, and it's not working and you've been trying it for a while, it's now time to take responsibility, because they're not going to solve all of your problems. And even though you can provide a lot of coaching and guidance to them, they need your support. And what we've learned from an agency standpoint, we are the platform, we have expertise on the platform, but the client always has infinite domain expertise that we just can't replace. We're not going to get that by being on a few calls or learning or reading a few books. What they do is, after hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of actual implementation in the trenches. And so we can just speed that up by getting way better at extracting that information out of them. And I think that's part of the relationship you had with the client.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I agree with every word you said. Yes.
Cool. And so now you made a decision, and then you found this goal that was just sitting there that just got revealed to you. And so I'm sure you had this moment of like there's heavenly music playing in the background. You feel like Neo from the Matrix, and all this stuff is happening when you're like, okay, now it's clicking. I got something. I feel I have something. So you start testing. Like, what was the main first point where you start seeing from 20K where it's like something connected, and now you're seeing 25, 30, 40?
Yeah, let me give the audience and to those who are listening a little pro tip. So one combination of the ad copy that made it really work with the audience was this. I basically looked at the section where they were complaining about their problems, and I basically took out all of the statements they made there, and then I worked on creating 5 powerful questions I could open the ad copy with. So all of the ad copies we ran were question oriented, meaning we would open that ad copy, that ad, with a very powerful, painful question that was basically taken out of their mouth, right? And that was, yeah, that was really good. And that's what really worked, because we also ran and still run a lot of traffic on mobile, and the first 2 chapters that they see without having to click on more, you know, if those are powerful questions, it really grabs them. It grabs their attention. They have to click more to read more.
So I think when people hear about like copy frameworks or like copy structures, the first thing is like step 1, put a question. Step 2, make an introduction. But a lot of times when people see the question, they're just asking, are you a healer that wants to grow your business? Like that might not be the thing that actually resonates with the audience. So why do you think your questions worked?
Again, because it's all about speaking the language of your audience, and I think I overheard the saying that says the best copy is written by your clients, right? So you really have to. And to be fair with you, actually, you almost made me feel bad, because we have tried the "Are you a healer who wants to grow our business?" and that copy actually worked as well,
Awesome.
decently. But others as well. You can't just run this variation, all right? You have to mix it up, and that's what we also learned by looking at the best marketers. They
Yeah.
mix things up, right?
With all of my copy, with anything that we do, we try very embarrassing stuff that this is not going to work at all. And it ends up working, like as simple things like that. Or we try very ninja stuff that we're like, trust me, man, like I know my stuff. We spend a lot of money. Just trust me, I got you. And you know, we get our butts handed by Facebook. So
Let me ask you, when you're launching the ads, do you ever have like a few ads that you like, that you kind of like fall in love with, and they
every,
underperform and you hate to turn them off? Yeah.
every single time I feel internally, I'm like, okay, I created a bunch of ads, or the team created a bunch of ads, and then I jumped into a handful of ads to make them a little bit nicer, and almost always those are the ones that bomb. So I just kind of, at this point, I let them run, and I try not to get emotionally involved with any of them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I usually have ads that I'm betting on and copy that I'm betting on, for sure.
Right.
So
Yeah, you have to stay cold-blooded in this ads game, man.
yeah. Yeah. Well, the main thing is that even as soon as you fall in love with any of your work, it's kind of game over, because you try to massage the copy, or you try to massage an angle, or even tripwire offer, or a lead magnet offer. But a lot of the time, the market just says, I don't care. And I think that's kind of the initial stages of what was happening with you guys until you made a bunch of decisions. And it sounds like even though you guys didn't change like the whole business very like significantly, what you just did was say, okay, maybe we're not explaining or communicating or connecting with you guys the way that you want to get and feel connected to. And so what is it that we could say differently? And that's where it sounds like you guys started testing messaging that they provided you on how to sell them.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And to touch on the point of being creative and but also staying analytical, the way I would say it is, running ads and even doing marketing, it's a fun game with very serious rules, right? Meaning you got to be creative to really grab your audience attention. But when it comes to actually um, cutting out what doesn't work and scaling what works, you have to be very calculated killer, right? You have to abide KPIs and um, eradicate emotions. As crazy, I know I'm making it sound a bit too dramatic, but yeah, that's how
Yeah,
I see it.
for people who might not have experience with it, it sounds maybe over the top, but the reality is, as soon as you get emotionally involved with any of your testing or your decision-making process, the whole thing becomes difficult, especially if your manager or your entrepreneur that you're working with, or your client is as emotional or more. So I definitely hear you. So when it comes to that connection, as soon as you started testing the nuances of the advertising, what happened next?
Yeah, okay. So as soon as we started testing and we started really discovering the ads that were working well, we managed to scale them to a level now we're making, let's say 50, 60, 70K a month. And a lot of people would stop but the thing is, the client was an A player, is an A player still, would still work. I love her dearly. And she was like, yeah, I don't care. Let's scale to 100K, 150K, 200K, 500K. Let's do that a month, right? That's our goal, and we're still on that journey with no destination, just moving up and up.
Yeah.
And but there was a different problem now, and it wasn't the ads, but it was the whole funnel started being important now. Yeah,
So before
for
you
the
get to that
success.
part, before you
Yeah.
get to that part, because what was the difference in the advertising and how much money you were spending when it comes to like in the initial stages? What were you starting with testing, and then what happened until you got to like learning that there's a next problem?
Yeah, to tell you the amount specifically, um, let's say we started with about a few $100s, let's say $100, $200 a day. We were testing a lot of stuff. We're doing a little retargeting and primarily spending money. Let's say 90% of the ad spend we were spending on really trying to, number one, discover the right audiences until we had a very solid lookalike. Number two, discovering the ad creatives, like images, videos, testing those as well. Number three, obviously, the copy variation. So we're really trying to not overspend until we had a proven uh, variations we could scale. And as soon as we discovered them, we scaled to about $700 a day, $800 a day level. Something around that.
Do you remember what your return on ad spend was before you got to like the next challenge, which was like the funnel approximately?
Um, hmm. I would like a monthly figure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say like 10 to 15 grand. We're at the point where we're making like 70, 75K. That
Okay.
was yeah, roughly speaking, yeah.
Got it. So it's
Yeah.
just important because what happens is that when you're initially starting out with advertising, you're like, well, maybe I only have $100 a day or $50 a day. And you're just in the motion of figuring things out. But then when it does connect, it looks like you guys started spending money relatively quickly when it comes to like from $100 a day to $700 a day, just so you can get results faster and then see that momentum. And then you face like the next level of challenges. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Okay.
As soon as we hit that milestone of 50, 60K a month, maybe even 70, another set of obstacles came into the picture, and we can talk about that
Yeah, yeah. So
if
let's
you.
do that because I think this is important from a like a journey standpoint that as soon as you think all of my problems are gone because I figured out copy, I'm so smart, naturally there's going to be the next challenge. And so for you guys, like what does it mean that there was like a funnel challenge for you?
Yeah. Um, okay, so and let me remind you again. That's what I really appreciate about you, Nihal, is that you're not the guy who thinks only Facebook ads. Okay, even in the video that you recorded and I watched, you clearly talked about the importance of the offer, the landing page conversions, the ad, everything, right? So you understand uh, the importance of the whole thing coming together for things to work
Yeah.
to work out. I can talk about the specifics of the webinar funnel, and I can maybe to tell you how I troubleshooted
Yeah,
with
that'll be
different.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So basically, like in most funnels, including the well, there's a mosquito. Sorry for that. Yeah. Uh, all right. Like in most funnels, in the webinar funnel, it doesn't want me to share the secrets. uh, so if this is a funnel, there are certain points where conversions happen, where the person has to go from one page to another, from one stage to another. Usually it's clicking on the ad, signing up on the landing page, then visiting the thank you page and waiting in that wait room to become an attendee. And after that, uh, webinar converting that person into an application, then the sales team getting that person actually on the call, because surprise, surprise, most of the people who who book, not most, but a good amount, are either disqualified or they do not show up on calls,
Right.
and then sales team closing them. So as you can see, lots of things you have to stay on top of to really things for really things to start working out. And one of the things we started working on is obviously the landing page. We took the conversion rate from about 12%-ish to 20%, and that immediately slashed our CPL and allowed us to get almost twice as many attendees on the webinar, twice as many eyeballs, so more people could apply, right? So that was the first stage.
And was CPL a main issue at this stage of the business?
It's a great question. So it was about at a point where it was about $15 or so,
Okay.
and we basically set a certain amount of money where we wanted to spend every day. And even today, we spend about $2,000 a day on ads, and we don't want to scale above that. We want to squeeze out everything possible out of the the $2,000 before moving to, let's say, 2,500 or $3,000. And at that point as well, we didn't want to scale further until we really explored all of our options of improvement, right? And CPL, to me, it stood out the most because I knew that we could really reduce it down to below $10 mark. Yeah. So it was really improving the landing page. That was the first step that we overcame, the first obstacle. The second one was really making sure that as many people as possible attended the webinar, right? And we started from a point of, let's say 50, maybe 55% attendees, which is still decent, right?
Mm-hmm.
A show-up rate on an evergreen webinar, but we're at 80-85% now, right? And there are a few things that we changed on the thank you page, and the biggest one was something that not a lot of people do in webinar funnels, especially, is adding a video, right? So we had the client get in front of the camera and really, give a 30, maybe 60-second video where she said, "Hey, this is me. Thanks for signing up to my webinar." And let's say in a couple of minutes, you'll be directed to a training session where I'll be showing you how to X, Y, Z, and I'll also give you a free PDF if you stay until the end. All right. So the client, my client, right, the expert appears in front of them, welcomes them, and that kind of entices them to really actually watch the webinar. Know what I mean?
So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I go through a lot of education. And if you're listening to this or watching this right now, I want you to stop for a second and think about what he just said, especially if you're doing a evergreen webinar or if you're doing any kind of webinar sequence. You might have heard to do a video like that. But what he just explained is said, here's the video I'm doing. Here's the exact script or approximately of what I'm implementing. It was a big element of how I went from 55% show up rates to 80%. The reason I'm stopping him right now is because are you actually doing that? You might have heard about that. You might know the importance of doing that. And are you actually doing that? We were going through one of our clients' ever webinars today. And when we looked through, it had the generic ever webinar video in there. And so something happened where it didn't get transferred over. And so that's obviously going to influence people showing up significantly or getting them excited. And so the reason I wanted to emphasize this is because it might not sound like a crazy ninja hack or anything like that, but if you're not doing it, you're not going to see the results. So, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the audio, go back and write down the script of that video so you can send it to your client or to do it yourself, depending on what your role is, and then let us know what happened with that script. So keep going.
Yeah, thanks for the call to action, man. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast and really motivating people to make these changes. Not only give them this awesome info, but also prompt them to take action. Listen to Nihal and really implement, because implementing is the only thing that counts and what's gonna bring the results. So yeah, cool. All right, so that was the next step. Really increasing the attendance rate. And after that, it was really improving the webinar, right? So I can give you a few tips on the webinar as well. although I don't claim to be a copywriting expert or a webinar expert, plenty of those out there, but from my experience of running dozens of webinar funnels, we noticed that adding actual video testimonials in the webinar is super effective. Like, you know how people say, hey, look at Jenny, picture of Jenny. Jenny is this and that and that.
Right.
But actually talking about Jenny and then right in the middle of the webinar, like slapping there a video of Jenny talking about results. First of all, it's a pattern interrupt, right? So it interrupts people's patterns. And that's number one. And number two, it's personal. And the currency these days is personal. And they get to see Jenny live, and it's also it has got something to do with the audio. It's something with audio and visual, whatever, right? That impacts that trust element. So that's one.
So
Um,
I
go
don't
on.
do that. I don't do that with any of our webinars. Are you doing that at a specific stage? Are you doing that near the end? Are you doing that in the beginning stages? When do you suggest to do that?
Yeah, I usually do one in the middle and then in the end, closer to the end, because I know that a lot of people give show testimonials closer to the end. So if whenever you're showing testimonials, you can put those there.
And how long is that testimonial usually?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say anywhere from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. Obviously, people are there to listen to the expert, but 30 to 60 seconds. I'm not saying that this is guaranteed to improve the conversions, but this is something you could try.
Okay, that's perfect. I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah. Cool. All right, and I'm not sure. Let me think about a few more webinar tips. Nothing that comes to my mind specifically, but it was also, let me tell you actually the most important thing you can do on the webinar, and that is to qualify people hard before getting them on the call. Like, you have to qualify the heck out of people, right? And this was one of the biggest problems, where we kind of like didn't qualify them enough. We left the gates open, and that caused a lot of unqualified people on the call. And that's amazing when you're getting an application a day through your funnel, but not so amazing when you're getting 15. You're paying for those 15 now, right? You got to be closing leads, but you can't because, well, the leads are not quality. Have you ever had that issue with a client?
Yeah, for sure. And a big part of that is if we say the price or not, or how we position the price without ever saying it. And so I'm sure there's other people listening to this where they're looking at the webinar. They're like, I don't even know how I'm qualifying, or I don't know if I'm qualifying hard enough. So how do people know if they are or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would, an exercise that I usually have my clients do is really just, it's super simple. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and really write about your ideal client, and then try to put bullet points, what they need to have in their business, or in where they need to be in life to qualify. And let's be honest here, at the end of the day, now 80% comes down to money, and the person having the financial resources to allow the thing, right? At least with high ticket coaching stuff, I've found that that's the case. You have to qualify people for the buying power, okay? And it is as simple as saying, hey, just for example, hey, if you are just starting out your business and you haven't had your first few clients, then I'm sorry, but this is not for you. You are very welcome to check out our YouTube page, where you're going to get an amazing tips and advice about how to generate your first solid income in your business by landing clients. But this is a more sophisticated product, and of course, for people who already. So you're trying not to be. Don't want to curse, but you're trying not to be. You're trying to be subtle, okay? You're trying to be subtle, be nice.
So I know from in the initial stages, especially when you start advertising, this is so counterintuitive. And I think this is why some people always get stuck, which is when you start in the initial stages, I will do anything to get a deal. I will do anything to close my next customer just so I can pay for my advertising, just so I can keep this going. And it becomes a challenge because you're not disqualifying them. Eventually everyone just disqualifies themselves and says, I'm not interested, because you're not saying this is actually elite, or this is not exclusive, or this is not right for everyone. or making it very clear that this is something that's different. And so from what you're saying, it's that when you go through the process of what is it that the client actually wants of their ideal client, writing out bullet points, then it becomes, how do I integrate those into the webinar? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. That's what it is.
Okay.
So testimonials and just qualifying people and doing the qualifying on the webinar is uh, significantly going to improve the conversion rate as well for the sales team, because now they're getting the qualified people. Their morale, like I've realized the importance of uh, uh, keeping up the morale of the sales team. Sales team is a huge part of any funnel that is not selling a product on the webinar.
Right.
Huge part. Yeah.
And so post webinar, when they actually watch the webinar, is there anything that helped increase the conversion rate or anything that supported that person to convert just at a higher level?
You mean like in terms of retargeting or?
Oh, just post webinar. So obviously, like after they see the webinar, they have
Right. Got it. Yeah.
changes
Cool.
you.
Right. So first of all, in the we're using Stealth Seminar primarily, but I think other apps you also have that functionality. Set an automatic redirect at the end of the webinar to the booking page. That's number one. Number two, obviously, work and master your buyer sequence or applicant sequence. And make sure it only goes out to people who attended the webinar. You can create a tag in your webinar software and integrate it with your email marketing software. So that sequence only goes out to people who have watched the webinar. Otherwise, if it goes out to people who signed up but didn't watch the webinar, they may end up signing up, but they will not know what the service is about. They haven't gone through the qualifying and yada, yada, yada. Not a good lead. So really the email sequence, remarketing. We used to do a lot of Facebook remarketing, and I would love to sit down with you at some point and really talk remarketing as well, because I know you do e-com and the product sales, and I think remarketing there, you guys take it to a whole new level. So we'd love to learn from you. But yeah, and remarketing.
Okay, got it. And so just to make sure I understood what happened in this stage, right? So 20K, it's just switching the offer, changing the approach in terms of like what is being sold, how it's being sold. And then it hit, and then it went from like $100, $200 a day to $700 approximately a day, or
Yeah.
700. And at that point, you're getting to 70K. Once you got there, you're saying that, okay, now we had to go deeper into the funnel because things were working, but we wanted to squeeze more out of it. And in order to do that, we had to optimize the overall, cost per lead by fixing the landing page, getting people to show up more, getting people I'm sure there's like elements that you were doing to optimize to get people to stay longer just so they actually saw the offer, testimonials, all of that. And then remarketing and email segmentation just so you could segment them further and make sure the right people saw the right messaging to get them to apply and eventually buy. So I know for people who might be listening, they're probably saying, that sounds like a lot. I don't know how to do majority of that. And what would be your advice to them? Because it does sound like a lot of moving parts. Like you and I know it's not as much as it sounds. It just takes time and thinking and learning. But from your standpoint, how would you say, like, what should they focus on first and how they should go about troubleshooting that?
Yeah, first I would really focus on figuring out your offer and writing decent ad copy for that and making your ads work. Okay, that's the first step, naturally. The second step is making sure your webinar works. If your ads are decent, which is not so hard to write, people overcomplicated it. If you know your audience, just write whatever is on your mind and give them call to action and make it add some scarcity in there, and there you go. You have like a solid ad, let's say, right? 7 out of 10, but still works and gets you leads, right?
Sure.
And the webinar, you work on the webinar, really educate them there, provide enough social proof, provide enough content, give enough testimonials so they actually sign up. Once you have these two, you're going to be making decent money, and then you can actually start bringing experts on board, sales team, all those people to help you figure out the other stuff. That would be the best sauce.
Yeah, and a good part of this process is like just be careful that you're not BSing yourself. So if you're going through these numbers, and we haven't started talking about tracking yet, I know that's a big part of what you do, but when you were going through this, the thing that I always look for is like, is there even a chance that I'm lying to myself in this process? So do I believe in the cost per click and like the lead numbers? Do I believe in like the show ups? Do I believe in the cost per application and their conversion rates and all of that? Like, do I believe in the numbers? Because I'm going to be making all of my decisions based off of that. So if I don't believe in those numbers, it's going to be a little bit challenging. And if you're not looking at your numbers, that's like a different challenge. It has nothing to do with Facebook advertising. It has everything to do with how you're approaching the business, and potential like past element, experiences in your life. And so when it comes to how to make decisions on everything that Nazim's saying from an implementation standpoint, it's like, what do I actually focus on? How do I ignore a majority of it so I have priorities and then go deeper into that? So, okay, so now you go from 20 to 100K, and then what needs to happen for businesses to, especially in the coaching space, to go from 100 to 250K?
And yeah, so that's when the tracking comes into play, like you said, and you start really attentively looking at data every day. And like I said, at least the data for the webinar funnel divides into three parts: Facebook ad campaigns. I don't know if I should show it like this or like this, but
That's like some people are going to be
whatever.
looking.
Yeah, Facebook ad campaigns, and that involves basically lead and cost per lead. If you're getting leads into the funnel, that's it for the Facebook ads. We're done. Number two is how the funnel converts, and that basically entails the attendance rate and webinar conversion rate. And then it's the sales team performance or your sales performance. Okay, so we had to really, and we also had like a tracking sheet that would track our amount spent, how many applications we had, like at what percentage the sales team closed, and what's the ROI. All right, and we would at each call and would meet every week at a certain time and would calculate everything for the last 7 days,
Right.
put all that data in there, and look at the ROI, okay? And then compare it with the other week's ROIs and see if it has gone up or down. We also would have our benchmarks. The ROI I personally go after is 6.0. 6.0 is the ROI I'm happy to see in a webinar funnel. And if we're shy from reaching the 6.0, we have to look at the stats, and sometimes it's the sales team performance, sometimes it's the ads, sometimes it's the webinar conversion rate. From my experience, to be honest with you, the biggest, like Ryan Dice says, he says you don't have an ads problem, you have a conversions problem. So a lot of times it's either the webinar converts not so well, or the sales team performance. You have to keep up their morale. So that's, yeah, from my experience, that was.
Gotcha. And so from your tracking, like how frequently are you doing that? And because I think you're tracking your numbers relatively frequently, and then you're reviewing them on a weekly basis, right?
I review them on a daily basis, but with a client, we review them on a weekly basis.
Got it.
The overall ROI metric, there's no reason to do it on a daily basis. That would be crazy. On a weekly basis. But as far as like registrations, cost per lead, cost per acquisition goes, yeah, we do that on a daily basis, yes.
Okay, so I know at that point now you're going through and optimizing different parts of the funnel process, and then of course you're doing like deeper levels of tracking. What in your actions like had to change when it comes to like from an advertising standpoint to go from 100 to 250? Because it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna just increase the budget on my ad sets, and then what needed to change from an entrepreneur or like business standpoint?
All right, so I'll start with the business standpoint. You have to, again, I'm repeating myself, but you really have to know your numbers, especially when it goes to 100K level, because 100K, that's great, but you obviously will also start possibly adding more people on payroll, hiring more experts, paying. Like we manage, like sometimes I manage 2K a day, 3K a day, but then I think to myself, like, God, that's like $60,000 a month to Facebook, right?
Right.
Kind of like taken away from your bank account, a lot of money. So you really have to track everything. So really be awesome with tracking. I mean, I don't know, invest into a bookkeeper, like a really good one.
Right.
So that's as far as the business stuff goes. As far as the Facebook ads go, then you should really triple down on your retargeting, because at that level where you spend that much money, you really are, at that point it's like uh, your marketing funnel is like a hand, and your ad spend is like sand, and you're
Right.
kind of getting something, but a lot of thing also pours down, right?
That's
So
awesome.
really, you really want to like kind of like put the retargeting hand here as well, and
That's
try
awesome.
to retain as much as possible.
Cool. I
Yeah.
know from some of our clients, as soon as they start hitting those type of numbers, what ends up happening is they need to know what their actual cash flow situation is. And there's a big
Oh yeah.
difference between like selling 100,000 versus collecting 100,000, and how much of those people actually will continue to pay those payments. How many of those people will never make another payment again? Is that integrated into your how overall you're looking at your revenue and your profitability? Like there's so much of the financial part, and I can relate with that from from a approach to money and the money mindset. That's so important, where you start hitting new levels and you start doing actions that start sabotaging you. And so unless you have a team around you, or you have someone who's kind of pushing you or giving you feedback or being a soundboard, what ends up happening, because this has happened for one of our clients, they went from about 8,000 a month, they went to 80,000, and they've hovered around like 60 to 80,000 to 100,000 a month, and we just can't break through. And it has nothing to do with advertising. Like you were saying, it's like we have an idea of what the funnel issue is, but it's primarily like how we're approaching the business. So I don't know if you've seen anything like that before.
Oh no, absolutely, man. This is great that you brought it up. Like even like credit card issues, I could write a ballad, like a song about the credit card issues. Amex. I want my Amex points. I want to travel for free. Blah blah blah. Like Nazim, you should spend for this card as well. I want to use the points for Christmas gifts, and like this card allows us to charge only $500 a day. Like those things you really have to take care of.
For sure, for sure. Awesome. And so for people who are in this situation where they have a webinar funnel or an application funnel, and they might be in that initial stages of just getting started or just figuring out their advertising, like what is it that you would recommend them as like a final piece of advice of like what they should focus on and how they should look at the growth of their business?
Right. So two things I'll recommend. Number one, really get to know your customer. It's super crucial because I've seen people who are not even that technical with Facebook ads get amazing results because their Facebook ads copy rocks. Like so important.
Nice.
Really uh, dial your contacts, like people you worked with. Create like 6 7 simple questions and run your past customers through them. Offer a free lead magnet or just a sign of a goodwill, right, for the good service that you provided. Ask them to run through this questionnaire with you for 20 minutes. So that's number one. And number two is really know your numbers. It's so easy. Like, man, I'm going to be honest. Like about 4 or 5 months ago, I tried to run a campaign for myself for my agency, and I had zero plan, no nothing. I didn't prepare anything. I literally just ended up spending $600. Didn't get anything significant. Right? I'm a watch fan. I could have bought myself a used secondhand Omega Speedmaster for that money, and I'm still burning that I don't have a Speedmaster,
Right.
and I just wasted it on ads. So even for people like me or like you, I'm not like bragging or anything like that, but we do kind of the ads for a living, and even on this level, we
Yeah.
get people amazing results. If we don't plan it for ourselves, then the success is not going to be achieved. So really know your numbers, super crucial.
Perfect. And where can people reach out to you if they want to work with you or have any questions?
Sure. My website's name is leadgenblackbelt.com. That's LEADGEN blackbelt.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. My name's Nazim Agabekov, as it's written there. And yeah, pleasure.
Perfect, man. Nazim, I appreciate your time, man.
Hey, man, thank you a lot. I really can't thank you enough for this great opportunity to talk with you, and hopefully we will have another one-on-one to talk about remarketing and tracking and so many more topics to talk about. I
Let's
really appreciate your time.
let's do it. Awesome. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Awesome. Thanks.